Howdy peeps, it's the Pink King here. Horror movies, for decades, have created iconic villains, all the way from the inceptions of movies themselves, with them creating creatures like Nosferatu, Frankenstein's monster, the Wolfman, and even Dracula. Sure, these characters have existed long before the age of film, but arguably it's the movies themselves that made them iconic. After all, whenever you think of these monsters, you think of how they looked in these movies. Even if you haven't seen the movies, you still think of how they looked here. That's the kind of strange power horror movies have. They arguably create the most icons out of any genre. Hell, they're so powerful you don't even need to watch the movies to know who they are. And it didn't just end with the Universal monsters, it's always been creating new icons as the years go by, with even more being added into the mix of modern legends with guys like Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, and Chucky, to name a few. It always seems like a new horror icon pops up just as the previous one starts to become a little stale. After all, in the start, it was much more thought out and subtle horror movies to start with. Then it slowly progressed into much more violent slashers, and now we're sort of in a new age of horror. One where it's now harder to find any new icons. Sure, there's plenty of good movies, but barely any new long-lasting figures in the genre. All except for one. And that is Art the Clown. Yeah, Art the Clown. Originally just a side character in low-budget indie projects, Art has possibly become the most out-of-nowhere icon of the entire horror genre. But why is that? What is it about this guy that got everyone talking? How could such a bizarre concept for a slasher go on to have its own spin-off movie, to a sequel, and now even a third movie on the way? Well, I think I might have figured it out. So let's answer the question, what made Art the Clown an instant icon? First, let's talk about where Art came from. His first appearance was in the short film The Ninth Circle, released in 2009, a very bizarre short to say the least, where he looked very different to how he is now. He was still being workshopped and he really didn't serve that much of a purpose. Much more of a glorified cameo, but it wouldn't be long until we saw him again in the Terrifier short film, released in 2011. This was where Art started to become much more unique. His look was updated to make him more recognizable, defining a few more of his character traits, however he was still in his rough stages, and he wouldn't garner that much attention here. However, it wasn't until his appearance at All Hallows Eve in 2013 where people started to take notice of him. He was arguably the standout of the movie, being so different from everything else and being so mysterious, people really wanted to know who this guy was and what was his purpose. So in 2016, people finally got more in with the Terrifier movie. Produced on a budget of $35,000, this movie would become a big hit, with it earning $416 million at the box office. That's more than 11 times what it took to make it. So you can definitely tell it was a smash hit. Suddenly, you saw this guy's face everywhere in horror media, and for good reason. One of which being just how shocking it was. Being released in the middle of the 2010s, most horror movies relied on cheap CGI to show off gore and skipped out on actually making something look real, and they'd constantly cut off when it was getting interesting. But here, they hold nothing back. Every stab, every slash, every bit of carnage happens all on screen. It was practical, which made it look and feel very real, and also was so extreme, the only thing I could possibly compare it to would be The Exorcist, as that movie had just a shocking impact when it was released, causing people to even throw up from watching it. And that shock is arguably what propelled The Exorcist into the icon it is now. And the same here with Terrifier. It's all in your face, completely unforgiving, and 100% hard to watch for all the right reasons. Another reason for this success it would definitely be Art himself. If you thought this guy was interesting as a cameo, then here he's a whole nother level. He's such a unique villain who's surprisingly a nice blend of new and old tropes, with him almost being a twisted fusion of Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger, having the almost predatory hunting and eeriness of Michael and the utter showmanship and assholery of Freddy, while mixing in his mime-like approach to killing people. I swear, if Pennywise is the clown, then Art is definitely the mime. And honestly, when I say it all out loud, it sounds like an absolute mess. But surprisingly, it's not. It's arguably his wacky and incredibly mean-spirited performance that gives him so much charm. Hell, I consider him the Bugs Bunny of horror, which, when you think about it, is a totally awesome idea. But arguably the thing that makes him work the most is the fact that he's genuinely terrifying. He could go from savage killer in one moment to uncomfortably still in the next so well. Just look at any still frame of him and you'll instantly catch on to how unnerving he is. He strikes that right balance of creepy but not over the top. And honestly, some screenshots of him will never leave me for no matter how long I live. He's just that good. So for a character to come out of what's essentially nowhere, that was not only brutal but funny, alongside being interesting and genuinely scary, you could see why he became an instant sensation. He threw everybody off in the best of ways. The people demanded more. So, a few years later, released in 2022, Terrifier 2 was released. Now with a budget of $250,000, Art struck again, and my god, did he leave another impact. If the first movie introduced the world to Art, then this movie solidified him as an icon. Although the movie made only around $15 million, which is a very far cry from what the first one made, arguably its infamy is what makes it more remembered. As just like with The Exorcist, it too needed to give people sick bags because of just how violent it was. Some people even had to be taken to hospital, it was that brutal. And if you were at some point even a tad bit squeamish from the first one, then you will not survive this one. The gore and the violence and the batshit insanity were dialed to 11. By god, I can't even show you a frame of it because that alone is too much to handle. The only real complaint I have with this movie is that Art kind of feels less intimidating here, as his goofiness is also pretty high here, with less genuinely terrifying moments, but he still works and is damn good at killing people. So there you have it. Art the Clown became an instant icon because of his uniqueness, alongside his homages to the past, as well as its all for or nothing attitude, and with the third movie on the way, it's safe to say we are not done with Art anytime soon. But what do you think? And what do you think of Art? Are you a fan of him? Is he just not your thing? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you all next time.